Hi there, and welcome to another interview. Today, got the fantastic Alan Reeves with me, and I'm going to ask him the question I ask absolutely everybody. Hey, Alan, why did you become keto?
Well, I started keto back in 1994, I think it was, but of course, it was called Atkins then. Dr. Atkins made the first diet in the 70s, but then I was doing it second time round when it became famous in the early 90s. Then there was a little tweak to it by a doctor called Dr. Mauro D Pasqula, which was more centered for the bodybuilders and strength training athletes, because he was a professional powerlifter and a doctor. I think he got world records at the event. So he was very, very strong. And he invented something called the Anabolic diet, which that's what I started on. I progressed from the Atkins to that. That was basically cyclical keto, where you would do keto maybe Monday to Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you'd have your carb refeeds and then go again. And I did that for some time, but I was only, 20, 21 then. And a lot of people did Atkins or keto to lose weight. And I didn't need to lose any weight back then. I was trying to get bigger. So again, it faded out. And then fast forward many more years, when I was about 40, something like that, 42, I think. I was still training. I was very good shape at 25. By 35, I used to be a performer, so I was on the stage a lot. I retired from that at 30. So by 35 to 40, gained some weight. The six-pack had become a bit of maybe a two-pack. And I just found that my fitness, I remember thinking I'm doing training for fitness. At early age, you're just doing it to add muscle. But when you're 40, you want to be fit. And I remember doing 10 squats and being out of breath. I think I was nearly 107 kilos. That was my biggest. And I thought, I need to sort something out. And I was going on holiday in 2 weeks' time. I thought, I'm going to go back to keto. This was in 2000 and where are we? 8 years ago, whatever that is, 2015, is it? I thought, I'll go keto. Not done that for years. And it wasn't very popular then. It's only, I think it boomed about 2018, 19. It was peaking. So anyway, I went low carb for a couple of weeks and literally 5 kilos came off. Of course, a lot of the water bloat. But it wasn't just that. I felt energized. I felt obviously lighter on your feet and energized. And the two-pack was getting to be a 4-pack ready for holiday. Well, this feels good. So I came back from holiday. I didn't remain keto on holiday, but I was low carb. But then when I came back, I literally read everything about it, the modern science with Jeff Volek, Stephen Finney, literally read every book on cholesterol, because I started doing I didn't call it bulletproof coffee because it was even before Dave Asprey, I think, was around. I was just doing it keto coffee, putting a load of butter in the coffee. So I wanted to learn about cholesterol, thinking that, am I going to die by doing this? Is this insane? And so, yeah, I studied it and remained strict keto for 2 years. Meanwhile, I was losing weight. I remember my jeans went from 36. I think it was 36 was their biggest ever, I think, 35, 36. And I ended up going to diesel. I only wore diesel jeans because I had big thighs, so I couldn't get the Levi's on. So I remember getting 34s, getting 32s, getting 30s, getting 29. I got down to 28s and they said, don't get any smaller because we don't make them in 27. So I'd never been that size since probably school. But the good thing is, then I did a bodybuilding competition. I did 2 that year, back in 2018, I think it was. I was 45. Never done a bodybuilding show before. My performing back in the day, I was Mr. England, but that was for more like a male model. It wasn't a bodybuilding competition back then. So this was my first 2 bodybuilding competitions in age 45, and I won them both. And I remained keto. I hired Keto Savage as my coach, and he helped me to get shredded, because I found it was pretty easy for me to get to 10% body fat, but to get that 5%, at the time, I just needed a little bit of guidance, which also, as a coach that I am now, I would still hire a coach because it takes the thinking out of it for you. I think we all need a coach, to be honest, to be accountable. So that's why I got that. And yeah, I won both shows. After that, I switched back to the anabolic diet for some time because I wanted to add muscle. And it's controversial. What I'm going to say is whether you can add muscle without carbohydrates. Technically, I think you can. Is it optimal? Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe you can increase the speed of the muscle growth. Maybe I'm talking nonsense here, but this is just from years of experience, that having that carb refeed, what Mauro D Pasqula said was that makes you very, because you're insulin sensitive, insulin is raised on that particular day, and you become more anabolic, hence the name, the anabolic diet. Because he was very, very against anabolic steroids. It was all about the diet that was going to make you anabolic. But my take on it is it's the stimulation of training that makes you grow, which people overlook that. They just go through their 4 sets of 10 and they're not really stimulating growth. So we'll talk about that later, of how I like to train, which is quite different. It's more intense. Well, so that's the history of my keto, and I've remained keto now for about 8 years. Carnivore has come into it. I remember Sean Baker when he had no followers, and now he's got thousands and thousands because he's very controversial online, and he's amazing. I mean, he's a world record holder. He's got older and he's got better. So carnivore for him is amazing. I believe you started keto yourself, no doubt, because nobody started as a carnivore if it was more than 5 years ago. It's quite a new diet. And I believe I do carnivore days, certainly carnivore meals. As I said before, I can't be bothered sometimes to make the vegetables or the salad. No other reason, thinking that for me, I don't have any autoimmune diseases. I don't have any inflammatory stuff. Maybe I did. So I certainly had acid reflux as well. That was terrible on me before I started keto. That was another reason. It wasn't just to lose weight. Thinking about it now, the acid reflux was actually stopping my training. I used to eat Rennies every day, all day long. I would have them in my pocket like chewing gum. Just have a Rennie, have a Rennie, have a Rennie. And I can honestly say I've not had a Rennie for 8 years. Nothing. So keto, if anything, can reverse acid reflux within days. It's that instant. And that's why now I think it's the best diet. Keto, some carnivore days, mostly keto. And that's how I will choose to stay. And that's what I teach people to do. If you've got autoimmune diseases or Crohn's or IBS, it certainly is good to start with carnivore and then add certain plants, certain vegetables as you go forward on your healing process. It's all about healing the gut. So yeah, that wasn't too long.
No, that was great. The Rennies thing, just for people that aren't in England and don't know what Rennies are, they're an antacid. So,
Oh yeah.
I think Tums and equivalent. My stepfather used to do that. He used to eat Rennies every day, and he didn't eat red meat. He didn't eat fat. He was quite an active person, but he had acid reflux. But I mean, that was way before I did any of this, so I couldn't, I don't remember about that. Sorry, I got a fly in the studio. Anyway, right. So really, you did it for fitness, but you didn't have particular issues, but just acid reflux is the one that seems.
I did have fatigue. I remember when I was away having a huge oats and fruit and orange juice breakfast, and I was sitting in the car park waiting for somebody to go to the gym. Literally could not stay awake at the wheel. Literally, and I just had a good 7-8 hours sleep, and I was literally falling asleep. This is where I knew there was something going on with my probably pre-diabetic insulin resistance that was starting to progress, or it was there. And I was just tired. tired in the afternoons. And I've got little kids then. I've still got little kids, so I'll keep having them. But now I have much more energy, and it's constant energy. That's the difference.
Yeah, and I think people watching they like the basic questions. So, do you have 1 meal a day, 2 meals a day? How do you do it?
I generally have about 4 meals a day, with probably a couple of fatty snacks. I eat around, I say I did 4,300 calories yesterday and lost weight. So I fancy, since I've come back training with Dorian Yates, I fancy getting a little bit bigger if possible. You're never satisfied as an old bodybuilder. You always want to have a little bit more bicep there or a bit of tricep there. And, that could be a little bit fuller. So you need to eat. I'm not scared of getting the calories in, but say I did 4,300 and lost weight. So push it up. So I eat a lot.
Yeah. Now you slipped in that you're training Dorian Yates, and before we started recording, I confessed that he was my idol in my 20s when I did my one and done bodybuilding show, which was natural, by the way. Dorian Yates flexing his thigh was the thing I remembered. He used to wobble his leg and then pull his muscles tight. How did you sort of run into Dorian Yates and end up? I think
as I'm a personal trainer, he runs a course for personal trainers called Dorian DY HIT certification, and this is his style of training, which I followed. Like you, I'm from the Midlands. I followed his career. He's 10 years older than me, 10 or 11 years. So I was a boy watching him, destroy the competition, and his style of training was pretty very intense. When he brought out the video Blood and Guts, which was, I think, 1998, he brought that out, something like that, and it was about his training for the Olympia. No one had seen training that hard. They'd seen Pumping Iron, of course, with Arnold just going through the motion very quick, but never really to that intense failure. He was too busy smiling for the camera. Whereas Mr. Yates, the shadow, he never had a smile in him. Dorian was telling me last week when he was posing for Weeder magazine over in Los Angeles, and Joe Weeder was saying, "Hey, you got to smile, Dorian, you got to smile." And he's like, "I don't smile." No, you got to smile. And then after about an hour, something said, "Oh, fuck it, he can do what he wants." He didn't need to smile. So he just was mean. He was himself, which no one had been like that really before, because there was all American. He was the first Brit and still the only Brit to win Mr. Olympia. And of course, he won it 6 times. So he's certainly a legend, and it was fantastic to train with him. So I did that for 4 days last week in Spain, because he lives in Marbella, hence the tan. This is a real tan. And it was too hot, if anything, out there. My goodness. And the gym where he was had the aircon. I don't know if it didn't work or something, but it didn't feel like it. It was intense. It was the hardest training I've ever done. We literally did 4 sets for legs, 4 different exercises, 1 set each. And that was the hardest thing I've ever done. Well, after the leg press, it took me 15 minutes to get off the chair. It was insane. 1 more rep and I would have been throwing up. And he said to me when I finished, "You had 1 more rep there." You bastard.
Yeah. And I think when I talk about my training, even my training at home, and people think it's not true, where I used to live, the gym was downstairs. And if I did a leg day, I could not walk up the stairs for 5 minutes. And that's fatigue, because I think people don't really understand that to get the training, you mentioned the stimulation of training that makes you grow. You've got to get that training response. So you've got to make your central nervous system go, wow. Yeah.
Especially when you're an advanced lifter, because your body doesn't want to add that extra tissue. Not without, obviously, the anabolics that people take. Well, I asked Dorian why he thinks that people are not the same as what they were back then. And he said simply because of mobile phones. Everyone's just staring at their phone the whole time, or filming themselves, or just too busy posting on Instagram, rather than, he had his logbook. He knew exactly what rep he was going to do. He knew that he failed at 6 last time. I'm going to get 7 this time. And he would be thinking that walking to the gym. And he didn't make any money in bodybuilding for years. So he would literally be catching the bus, treading through the snow and thinking of these people in Los Angeles just sunning themselves while he was motivated to train in this manner. And that's the mind of a champion. And I think people have lost that a little bit because of social media. Everything's instant gratification. They want to take the supplements or the drugs before they do the work. They want the drugs to do the work rather than their mind, if you like. As you said, you did your competitions natural. When I was 45, I did my 2 competitions. I was natural for those. I started TRT after the shows. So I was age 46 when I started TRT because I had low testosterone symptoms, you see. It wasn't because I needed it for bodybuilding. So I was natural also. So I never lie about that. So I'm very open about that because I've talked with a company that I use now that provides it. It's all done through a doctor and it's all monitored, etc. But I wasn't on it for the shows. It was natural.
Yeah, and the TRT is nowhere near the dosage that you would get when we're talking about people juicing to do the shows. Just for the people listening to the podcast, Alan does look amazing. And we're talking about people that want to get bigger. So when he said 4 meals a day, if you're just the average person that's looking at keto or carnivore or low carb to just lose weight and get your health back, we probably wouldn't recommend 4 meals a day. But when you're trying to build muscle and actually compete at a professional level, and 4 meals a day is possibly for some people not even enough to get that protein in. So
yeah, for sure. Your traditional bodybuilding diet, I mean, they go 6-7 meals a day just to get that amount of food in. They're eating every 2 hours. But the thing when you're doing it keto style, you can get the calories in a lot easier because you're eating a lot of fat. If I do 300 grams of fat, there's 2,700 calories just of fat. Now, as a bodybuilder doing 100 grams of fat, they've got a lot of carbs to eat. And that many carbs, I would just be so exhausted and bloated and just feeling terrible. So I feel that this is the best way to do it, certainly at an older age when you get a little bit more insulin resistant and a little bit more of a damaged gut, if you like. But it's proved that you can still add muscle. You can still get in shape. I'm 50 years old now. I've never felt better and I look better than I did in the competition. I've got more muscle. I've added muscle. Again, is that the TRT age 46? It's not hurt me. It's definitely helped. But again, the dose is what, 200 milligrams a week, thereabouts. I think it's 175. But compared to a bodybuilder, that's probably 10 times less than what they're taking, maybe even 15 times less. So it's a very safe dose.
So your TRT, you're in Sweden now. Did you start TRT in Britain?
Yeah, in England, but I come back and go. So I'm mostly in England, but in Sweden as well. So I still prescribed by a British company. It's great.
You can mention them if you want.
Oh, it's called Balance My Hormones.
Okay.
Fantastic company, very good doctors, and they prescribe and they treat not through numbers, they treat through symptoms, which a lot of them, you've got to be in this range. Some people still feel crap in that range. So it's important to find a doctor that treats the symptom rather than just a number. And yeah. It's a little bit rare.
I mean, I always say that I'm a qualified phlebotomist. You don't know everything about me. So I've done thousands of bloods, and I always say treat the person, not the number, because the numbers are a yardstick, but actually how you feel, look, perform is actually much better indicator of what's going on, because that's the whole point, isn't it? I think it's very interesting that you're open about that. I think Mark Smelly Bell is an influencer in America that
I know him.
About the TRT. I think he does that as well. I don't think it's frowned on. I know you mentioned Sean Baker there, and he doesn't do that. He deliberately goes out of his way to say he's not doing that. I think it's very individual, isn't it? I have no problem with it. I don't do it, but I will be honest with you. I'm 59. I would be open to it if it was something that I felt I needed.
If you need it, it's like if you're diabetic and you need insulin, then you take insulin for the rest of your life. It's you're just replacing something that you're not making anymore. That's bottom line. Women have been doing it and not been frowned upon for years with their HRT. And it's very easy for them to get from the NHS. I know ladies that have gone to the NHS and they've been given the HRT without a blood test, just because they've shouted at them with symptoms and the doctors just wrote the prescription. That simple, which I don't agree with. You've got to test the blood, but, you know, I'm not a doctor, so what do I know? But that's how easy women can get it. Whereas men, you've got to fight somebody at the NHS to try and get it. It's almost impossible. So that's why you have to go private, and you will get a better service. Yes, it's more expensive, but you get what you pay for.
Yeah. And I think, just for people that don't know this, hysterectomy, actually derivative is from hysteria. I mean, that's where you get hysterectomy from.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it sounds like the same word. I can imagine.
So if someone's screaming and shouting and hysterical, you know, that is a symptom, and there's the word for it. Now, you mentioned Dorian Yates. We won't talk about him all the time, but before we started recording, you were saying about him saying sarcopenia is the new smoking. So
that's right. Yeah. And I see it as a personal trainer that, you know, if an elderly person falls over and breaks their hip, I was shocked to find the numbers. I might not be dead accurate with the number. It was something like 50% of people that break their hip are dead within 3 years, age over 63. It was super, super shocking number. Because my mum fell over and broke her shoulder in January in the winter. Just simply, you know, fell over. A stronger person wouldn't have broke their shoulder. Yes, she goes to the gym, but she just does a bit of aqua aerobics or something. So she needs to do the strength training. This is what gets us out of the chair, is our muscles. I trained a guy last year. He was 77. He couldn't balance. So he was very, very unstable on his feet. When we did the leg extension, we did it unilaterally, one at a time. His right leg was quite strong, but his left leg had nothing. And it was the muscle that wasn't firing. So we just concentrated on getting them more even. Within 4 weeks, there was almost even. And the strength on the left had gone up about 300%. And of course, his balance was better because he was worried that it was something to do with the brain, etc. It was simply not using his legs enough. And now he's continued to do strength training. So it's progressed so quick at age 77. So yeah. It's the answer to longevity, in my opinion. You should be lifting weights.
Yeah, it's never too late to start. I mean, I train older people. My oldest one was 89.
Wow.
So you can make a big difference. So enhancing bone health and reducing the risk of osteoporosis is, would you say that you need to do resistance training to attack those things?
100%. And this is what Dorian's new business venture is. He's invested in these new equipment for normal people, if you like, not bodybuilders. And it's people to add muscle quickly, efficiently, sort of 20 minutes twice a week. And the whole clinic will test everything: your bone density, your bloods, your nutrition. It will be a whole package where a normal person can go in there, join for 6 months and see results. That's how he wants to train now normal people to get stronger and to live a healthy life. I did yoga with him on the beach, and, you know, with an ex-bodybuilder, he was very, very flexible and very good at that. Something he could never have done 30 years ago. Impossible. But yeah, he's very much into now living a long, old, healthy life.
Well, what about you? So do you train just bodybuilders, or do you train anybody?
No, I hardly train any bodybuilders. I train normal people, general population. Some of them are more advanced than others, of course, as you get in a normal gym. But I have a few intermediate, now a couple of guys that want to go on stage. So they're progressing into the bodybuilding world. Never be sort of your pro, huge, monstrous bodybuilders, but just to get in a nice beach body shape, to look strong and to look fit and healthy. Majority of my clients are ladies, actually, on the one-to-one basis. They really like to train and lift weight. The thing with ladies I've found is they're more inclined to ask for help. Men, oh no, I know how to do that. I know how to bench press. I know how to squat. Whereas a lady comes, I've never done anything. please show me from the beginning. And they're willing to learn. Whereas, you know.
Yeah, men know it all. Well, we do, don't we?
Exactly. Yeah, we've seen Arnold do it, so it must be right.
Yeah, we don't need maps or instruction manuals, all that sort of stuff. One thing you mentioned there, and I want to give him a shout out, which is Keto Savage Robert Sykes. I think not only very knowledgeable, but an absolutely wonderful bloke as well. So you said you went to him for guidance, and you got down from 10% body fat to 5% body fat. What were the main things that you did to do that?
Well, Robert does it very, very controversially to pretty much everybody else. I don't see anybody that's done it the same way. He kept my protein quite low towards the last stage of it, and the fat very high. So I was in a calorie deficit, if you will. I went down, I think the lowest calories I got to was about 1,800, which for me that eats 4,000 a day. I was probably on about 3,500 then, because I was a little bit smaller to start with. But it still felt like low calorie, but the hunger was very much controlled by doing it that way with the fat. I found that men dieting, higher fat keeps them satiated, but women I found tend to be better on higher protein, lower fat. That's my experience with dieting for ladies. So, and I think psychologically, ladies have a problem with the word fat, eating it. Men, no problem. Fat and protein, give me some bacon and eggs. It's easy. Women have got it so in their brain that fat will make you fat. If it was called something else, if fat was called perhaps energy, eat this energy, they might consume it a little bit better. So it's a bit of a mind game to get them to eat the fat.
Yeah, and I think that's not fearing fat is one of the big mantras I try to get out there, because I think that the word being the same as your body fat, it does seem intuitive, doesn't it? Oh, I'm going to eat fat, therefore I'm going to get fat. But quite the reverse. I find very much the same as Keto Savage there. The more fat you eat, the more satiated you are.
Yeah,
obviously.
We've gone through many different changes with keto the last 8 years, as you'll be aware, and now there's new names on the block, like your Paul Saladinos, your Bot K's, which they certainly haven't been around for 8 years on the internet talking about keto or carnivore. And it seems to be now, 8 years ago, it went through a phase with your what was his fella's name? The low carb guy, the big guy. He had the low carb thing. He wrote the books as if you could eat as much butter as you want, basically, and you won't gain any weight. And people went through this, that you can eat, there was no limit. Keto was a magic formula, and you can eat exactly what you want, 10,000 calories of butter, and you'll lose weight. Well, to me, that's never made sense as a bodybuilder, because energy, as you say, call it calories or energy. The general public know it as calories. But yes, as Bart says, it's energy, it's heat, but it's a bit confusing to tell people to not eat the heat sort of thing. And, you cannot eat that many calories and lose weight. It's pretty impossible. I'd like to see it. I'd like to see somebody eat 10,000 calories every single day and lose weight, because yes, I lost weight yesterday at 4,300. Then I need to eat more to gain, but there has to be a cutoff point. Surely it just makes common sense. Yeah.
And I think people that know my channel will probably waited for me to talk about the fact you use the word calories, but you're aware of that conversation's happening. I think it's all about volume of food. Personally, I think weight, I prefer to go by weight, because in the end, if you eat all that butter, there's a couple of things that are going to happen there. You're going to feel satiated. It's not going to impact on your insulin, is it? But it's also going to help your bile production, and you need bile to absorb amino acids. So there is more to it than just those things.
I'm definitely not a calorie in, calorie out Greg Duché person. I don't believe that at all. Yes, you do need to have an energy balance deficit, but it's not straightforward. You don't just, because you can't measure what you've actually burnt accurately. Today I might burn 3,000. Yesterday I maybe burnt 4,000. It's impossible to be accurate with that. And certainly eating an avocado at 500 calories is not the same as a donut at 500 calories. To me, that's obvious also. But we have to use a number with your general population clients that say, right, you're on 2,000 calories. And again, if they don't want to track, this much protein, eat this much protein, this much fat, this much vegetables. And some people have lost weight. Some of my clients have lost weight without tracking anything. One guy, he's lost the most weight. He's never tracked anything. He's just done that. This much protein, this much fat, this much vegetable, done. You don't have to overcomplicate things sometimes.
Yeah, and I think that's the bottom line. If you look in the mirror and you look at your plate, you should be able to, at some point, look at your plate and think, well, I had that massive load of food yesterday and I had 5 times that amount. And I looked in the mirror and I didn't look better, I looked worse. It's not rocket science, is it,
exactly.
Really?
I think for me, one of the best books I've read was Wheat Belly. And when you learn about wheat, the dangers, it's not, yes, gluten is the top trump. He's the famous one. But there's loads of other proteins in the now modern wheat. Wheat used to be over 2 meters tall, blowing in the wind, and it was not sprayed with a glyphosate, etc. Now, apparently, wheat is less than a meter. It grows in any weather condition. You can spray anything you like on it and nothing kills it. This is what's destroying our guts. This is what's causing the autoimmune diseases, the IBS, the Crohn's. Nobody had that when we was kids, and now kids have got these problems. We didn't. Is it causing other things? Is it causing autism or whatever? Because we didn't have any of that when we was at school. We're similar age, with a similar sort of 70s and 80s children, and you never even saw anybody with an asthma pump. I remember seeing one at school and thinking, "What's that? Can I have a go?" Because it looked cool, because it was odd. Now it's probably odd if you don't have one for children. It's really, really sad. And I believe it's coming from the toxins from the wheat, which is in everything. It's not just bread. It's in everything. Every packaged food has got traces of these. I think it was amylopectin was another, like a gluten, that it can be gluten-free. You're eating gluten-free, but it's still got these other ones in, and also only 20, I think 20%, might be 10% of people with celiac get the bad stomach, which is a good thing because they know they can't eat gluten straight away because they're on the toilet for a week. Whereas the other ones, they can get autoimmune diseases, they can get schizophrenia, dementia. So they could be celiac without knowing they're celiac. So it's a really interesting book. I need to reread books like that because there's so much to learn. So Wheat Belly, it's quite shocking.
Yeah, William Davis wrote that, and he's actually really good on YouTube. He's a great presenter of his findings. So, I mean, I think, in fact, if I have someone come to me and they're not interested in carnivore, keto, low carb, they want to lose a bit of weight, little bit of body fat, I should say. They want to lose body fat, and we talk about what they're eating. And I say to them, look, just cut out potatoes and bread and see the difference. All forms of bread, fake bread, whatever, sourdough, forget all that. Just take the bread out of your diet and the potatoes. And if that works a little bit, come back to me, because I've proved that I do know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And those two things make a big difference in health and body fat, without a shadow of a doubt. I think
it's funny you should say that. My staple diet back in the carb day would be your oats in the morning, but then I would be at Marks and Spencer's for a sandwich, packet sandwich with obviously probably margarine on it, ham and cheese sandwich with pickle, whatever, always a sandwich. Then it would always be a jacket potato for lunch, cheese and beans, standard British food, and then probably another egg sandwich in the afternoon because you get hungry again. Then and then of course at the evening, my partner's Chinese, so it would be stir fry with this much rice, and I would always have 2 portions of that rice, because carbs are moreish. Carbs, you have carbs, and there's a thing what he says in his book Wheat Belly, that wheat spikes your blood sugar more than sugar for longer, which makes you crave more wheat. So it's a vicious cycle. It's literally just, it's a drug that's just making you want more and more. And all these things are made in a laboratory these days to make you eat more of their product. It's, my advice is always, if it's really any food, if it's got a label on it, don't eat it. You don't get a label on an avocado. You don't get a label on a ribeye. You know what I mean? Like an ingredient list. If it's got 18 ingredients, don't eat it. It's not good for you.
Wow, that was a fabulous interview. I hope you enjoyed that. And if you like that sort of thing, I recommend you watch this one next.